So I'm speaking with composer Joby Talbot, whose talents and versatility have given us such a wide range of scores and have spanned across many genres. Um, Joby's work as a composer also spans beyond film with concert pieces and ballets. Some of his film work includes the scores to films like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Penelope, Son of Rambow, and Franklin. Joby's newest score is for Illumination Entertainment's newest animated feature, Sing. Joby, thanks so much for speaking today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Kai.
So to start, I would love to know kind of at what point did music enter your life? You know, kind of going back to the beginning, the roots, and at what point did you kind of see that turn, that kind of, I guess, that catalyst that came in that made you decide to focus on a film and TV scoring path?
Well, I played my first composition in public when I was 9. It was like this insufferable little child I must have been. And it was just always the thing that I kind of wanted to do. I played piano and then I played oboe in like wind bands and then orchestras and I started writing like as soon as I could really play something. I started making up. So it was like much more fun to make stuff up than to play what your teacher tells you to play.
Right.
Anyway, and I was always playing all different kinds of music. I was in a rock band for like 8 years on the road, and then whilst I was doing that, I was writing. I went off to music college and studied classical composition, and was writing all these different crazy pieces of classical music while on the tour bus at the back of the bus trying to scribble away on pieces of manuscript paper, and then I got asked to do a British TV show called The League of Gentlemen, which was a really big hit comedy series back in the 90s. It won the BAFTA and it won the Golden Rose of Montrose. It was really brilliant, very fun. I think it was on Comedy Central here, but I can't see it would really translate. It's very English. Anyway, they asked me to write the music for their thing, and never really kind of looked back. I just so enjoyed scoring to picture. And now I spend half my time kind of scoring movies and the other half doing things like writing opera, ballet, other kinds of storytelling music, but in different kind of fields.
Right.
And then I do other stuff too, but those are the things I really kind of enjoy doing, telling stories through music.
Absolutely, I feel like writing music for stage performances. Opera and ballet is so interesting, and it's still music accompanying visuals, but the visuals, of course, are live, and there's no camera shifts and shots or editing. So, what is the approach for scoring something, say for an opera or a ballet, where the audience is kind of taking it all in one piece versus something where you're writing for film? And how different is the approach? I mean, how different is the music's role in it? If there's any differences?
Yeah, the main difference is that the music comes first. In traditional ballet anyway. The composer writes the music and then the choreographer choreographs to it. I know that in other forms of dance that's not always the case, but in the story ballets that I've done, the music comes first. So the music is trying to tell the story in advance of there being any visuals. Mm-hmm. And you have to kind of decide how much story you want to tell with the music, how much you want to leave it up to what comes later. So that's very hard to try and imagine. I guess it's a bit like writing library music or something, in that you have to try and imagine what somebody else might do with it later.
Right.
The other thing is that they dance to the music. The actors on screen for a movie aren't acting to the music.
Right.
So it's a very different thing. It's like the music drives it in dance, and even more so in opera where they're singing it. They're singing the words. The music comes first, and it becomes the driving. I mean, even like the stage manager in a ballet will have all the lighting cues and everything written into the musical score.
Right.
Because the music is like the rock on which everything is kind of hung. And that's obviously completely the opposite with movies, because the whole film is done.
Right.
And then you come on and you put your score on kind of almost last. I mean, they're probably doing some visual effects and sound mixing and stuff, but other than that, the music department are the last men standing often.
Yeah,
it's not unusual to come in like really at the 11th hour, especially if you're like replacing a score or something. I mean, you can come in, the whole thing's just finished. It's just ready to go. Everyone's just looking at you expectantly, and you've got to kind of put the music on. So, but having said that, of course, there are huge similarities. I mean, the way the music can drive the story along, the way music can help you focus on a certain way a character is feeling, or set the stage for some magical, crazy location, or you know, all these kinds of things, are common to any kind of storytelling music.
Right, absolutely. And so now your newest film that you scored is Sing, which comes from Illumination. You know,
Mhm.
they're best known for Despicable Me and the Minions. But you get to reunite with director Garth Jennings, which you worked on Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Son of Rambow. So as a composer, how has your working relationship with Garth evolved over the course of the films you've done together? And how has it grown? Have you kind of developed a shorthand, or has it uh, kind of built on itself, or has each one kind of been almost like a different experience?
Well, Garth is one of my very closest friends, as well as being a wonderful collaborator and a fantastic director, obviously, and writer.
Right.
And the first movie I did was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And it was a hugely ambitious project, massive, big score for full orchestra, but then all this other kind of crazy music, like space age cocktail jazz, and
Right. Right.
a hymn for a congregation of aliens to sing, and then all this kind of crazy like Esquivel kind of cantina Latino jazz, and I mean all this sort of really insane. Um, and with that movie, I actually, because it was such a sort of specific world, I actually went away and wrote a bunch of music. Garth gave me the whole film just as an animatic before they'd edited in any of the live action stuff.
Wow.
Just kind of storyboards, some very basic effects, and I kind of went through and scored a whole lot of it, kind of on spec.
Hmm.
And actually, a lot of that music kind of survived, especially in the last kind of quarter of the film. But I really wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. We went away and recorded it in kind of on the cheap in Prague, and then
Hmm.
recorded the real thing in London later. And yeah, that was the way we did that film. And then with Son of Rambo, Garth decided he really wanted to do much more sort of guerrilla style filmmaking, and kind of with an absolute skeleton crew. And but they still set aside a really nice, healthy budget for a wonderful orchestral score. And in that one, it was just, it was the single most delightful collaborative experience I'd had with a director, really, because we were so just kind of simpatico. I was just loving what he was doing, and we had, those great moments you just dream of working with the director, where you're playing something down the phone on the piano, and he's like, kind of, oh, I love it. There's something there, something missing. Wait, can you maybe do something? You go, oh, like this. They go, yes, that's it. It's great. Crack open the champagne, all fantastic. Um, but we knew that Sing would be very different. The stakes are an awful lot higher. And of course, Illumination aren't this successful by accident. I mean,
Right.
they have a way of making these movies, and it's very specific to them. And as an outsider coming in, of course, Garth was also an outsider coming in, but he'd come in several years previously. But I came in and I had to, Garth really had to sort of help shepherd me through the process of collaborating with, um, particularly Chris Meldandri at Illumination, who really runs a very tight shop.
Mm.
Uh, he oversees everything in the films, and he's such a kind of huge creative influence on what happens. So, you can be sitting in the room with the director, and it's all seems to be going very well, but Chris is very kind of focused on keeping everything on the straight and narrow.
Right.
And one thing I learned very quickly with animated films, never having done an animated film before, is it's very easy to kind of sort of derail things by they're working so hard on making the imagery seem so real that if you just put slightly the wrong trumpet sound on, it can just break the spell, and
Wow.
suddenly it looks artificial again. And so it was very, very, very closely micromanaged, and it had to very much work with their kind of vision for the whole film. And we got there, but it was a very different process. But
And,
equally enjoyable.
absolutely. I mean, and for animation, did you? And since Garth is directing, and he probably reached out to you early on. I mean, when did you start coming in to the process? Because the film also contains a lot of pop songs, and
Mhm.
so kind of what was the approach? what was the goal for the score? I mean, I'm kind of rambling with a bunch of questions, but let's start with what was the goal with the music, and kind of when did you start? When did your process start in the production timeline?
Um, well, I was talking with Garth about it sort of quite early on. I can't remember when he actually asked me to do it. I know they took me over to Paris so I could meet with Garth and Greg Perler, the editor, and Janet Healy, who co-produced the film with Chris Meledandri, and had a very nice lunch. And yeah, it was clear that we could all work together, and that was very nice.
Right.
And then, so that's probably the first time I saw something then, and that would have been, I don't know, 2 or maybe even 3 years ago.
Wow.
So I was kind of in touch with the process from quite an early stage. I saw some of the character design, and I was just chatting with Garth about that. I read a script and chatting with Garth about it. But I really came on board properly about a year ago, I suppose. And yes, I mean, I was quite clear from the outset that the a big part of the job of the score was going to be knitting the songs into the fabric of the film, and making sure that you get carried from one musical number through to the next, effectively and excitedly. Also, it's a very necessarily it's quite a complicated storyline. We have all these different contestants in the show and the film, and they all have interesting backstories that have led them to be part of it, and then their stories kind of continue in parallel with the main narrative of the film. And when we rejoin a character, and there's 6 contestants or something, when we rejoin a character storyline, the music very, very clearly has to kind of yank you back into that headspace. So we're kind of back in with those characters. And that can maybe just like 20 seconds of like we rejoin a mad heist scene,
Right.
somebody drives clappers through the streets, nearly causing accidents. And then suddenly you're out of that again. You're with some another character who's having like a nervous breakdown because their boyfriend left them or whatever. And you have to paint that picture and move everything forward all the time. So even though there's so many songs, and I think they literally have at least part of 103 songs.
Wow.
And I mean, sometimes it's just a sting, but
Right.
So you'd think there wouldn't be much room for score. And although in terms of number of minutes, it is a relatively short for an animation film, it's a weighty score. It does a lot of work, and it's very important, I think, to the way you perceive the narrative, and in particular the way that you relate to the characters. And this about this film is the thing was its real strength. I think for me is that the characters are so beautifully drawn, and we really believe in them. We see somebody having a big emotional moment. It's not just some sort of fuzzy animated thing. We really are like great acting. I mean, really great acting. There'll be, Matthew McConaughey's character will be, right in close up, and we'll watch a play of emotions over his face. And it's wholly believable. You soon forget that it's just being drawn on a computer.
I mean, yeah, that's the idea for sure. And but we mentioned, I mean, there's a lot of songs in the film, and there's so many great musicals that feature kind of more popular songs. I mean, I think of come to mind as Moulin Rouge and songs where the songs really are kind of the main ticket. Do you ever feel like, I guess, is it appropriate to say that in this instance, the score is not meant to shine as much, or does it have a different purpose than if there were no songs at all? I mean, did you felt like you were competing against? Were you worried like, okay, the songs are kind of overshadowing my work, or was that ever kind of a thought process of?
Well, not really. It's the only weird thing is that the last 2 reels, where you would expect, you have more and more and more scores, you build a conclusion. Actually, you have less and less and less because there's more and more and more songs. It ends with a show. So
right.
So you look, well, you're getting ready for the big reel 5 and 6 numbers, and of course they never happen. But other than that, where the score is most doing its job, it has plenty of room to do its job. I mean, Garth's written these several beautiful set piece scenes where score is very, very important. one scene where Reese Witherspoon's character has built this crazy machine, this sort of cobbled together machine she's invented to feed all her kids while she goes out to sing in this show, and it's just a really fun romp, and the score is like it's like a ballet score. It's like this great big kind of piece of crazy orchestral music, doing all this stuff.
Right.
So there's no kind of feeling that you have to that you're not allowed to fully express yourself. There's plenty of moments where the music really is, and in fact, I mean, the main note that always came back from Christmas Angie was just more. If it's a sad cue, be more sad. If it's an energetic cue, can it be more energetic? So, no, there was never a sense of holding back.
Oh, okay, that's great.
I mean, there were maybe a couple of moments where there was a song, and I could have wished I could have had the opportunity to score it. But when you watch the film, you realize that the balance between score and songs is just perfect. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
I wrote a big cue for the opening title sequence, and in the end, they decided to go with a pop song. And obviously I was disappointed, but I couldn't say I thought it was the wrong decision. I think it's the right decision. It just sets the film up in a different way than if you'd scored that scene.
Right.
That scene on its own, beautiful score, but it would have slightly unbalanced everything that came subsequently. So, and then we managed to reuse it in the closing credits anyway. So all is not lost.
Well, kind of looking at films in general and all that, you've got to write. I mean, for so many unique stories and unique different genres. Is there any I guess any different, is there a certain genre that you like to kind of gravitate towards more? Is there something that you speaks to you more as a person, as a human being? Do you like to kind of write dramatic music, comedic music, or is it just whatever you just try to find, I guess, the heartbeat of the story no matter what?
Well, I think I would like to. I mean, I like to write music that I think I'm good at writing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in an ideal world, I would do jobs that I really believe that I was the only person on planet Earth who could possibly do them. That's a good place to start. If you're doing, they say, we want a reggae score, and you're thinking, oh, I could do that. You think? You're also thinking, I know like 3 guys down the road who could do this a lot better than me, but hopefully I'll be a quick. And that happens when you're scoring a film. You have suddenly asked to do something that's really way out of your comfort zone,
Right?
And you can do it, but there's always that nagging thing, thinking, why are they getting me to do it?
Yeah.
I love the film I did a couple of years ago. The score ended up being quite different from what the director originally wanted, and it ended up being more sort of a generic kind of contemporary thriller score than he'd originally wanted. And then you sort of think, well, yeah, and he probably would have, if he'd known that's what it was going to be, why would he have booked me?
Right.
Because I think where my real strength, or certainly what I enjoy doing musically, is telling emotional stories with music. I really like writing very impassioned music that really getting inside a character, and really going somewhere with it. There's one scene in Sing where it's just incredibly sad. I mean, Buster Moon, the Matthew McConaughey's character, he's totally on his knees, and you can't see a way out for him. It's properly sad. I mean, quite bravely so, considering this is a kids' film.
Right.
So the music can write just this heartbreakingly sad music. I love doing that kind of thing. I don't really like doing kind of vamped till ready, just kind of rumty-tum music that doesn't really want to do anything. And I have a real kind of bugbear about the whole contemporary style of filmmaking where there's just music on.
Right.
It's like, what is music now contributing? It's not contributing anything. Can we just like turn it off, listen to the sound effects or something? So I don't know. So I mean, comedic things can be just as emotional as dramatic things. So as long as it's got like a heart, I want to score it.
That's awesome. That's a great. I love that answer. But to kind of wrap things up, I always like to ask composers this one question. So if you could score any film ever made without pretending the original score never existed, and no disrespect to the original score at all, what movie would you pick? What's the biggest playground that you'd love to kind of play in?
Well, I mean, I guess, like, rather boringly, you'd have to say Star Wars, surely.
No,
I mean,
of
it's
course.
just...
A lot of composers say Star Wars.
Well, I mean, of course, the thing is, it's the best score ever written, so it's not like I would have done any better.
Right.
But I should have loved the opera, and those big sci-fi. I mean, but then Star Wars, it's got all the kind of tropes that you can have fun with. And one of the things that's fun about scoring for ballet, for example, is that, for example, the first big story that I did was Alice in Wonderland
Right.
and the Royal Ballet in London. And, the second act ends with a big flower waltz. And there's been plenty of flower waltzes in ballets in the past. So you can look at all the flower waltzes and you can do like the uber flower waltz. You can like throw everything at this flower waltz and try and outdo all the great flower. It's a fun kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for John Williams, Star Wars was the same. The baddie, you want a baddies march. I mean, come on, and you want, the big medal ceremony at the end and heroics and all these things. And then you can go back as he did through kind of history of music and just cherry pick the best ideas for all those kind of tropes.
Right.
And that's really good fun to do that kind of thing. And of course, every time a director asks me if they can have a theme for a character, and then you look at the scene and you realize that the dialogue doesn't let up even for a second. The character walks onto screen, says something smart, vanishes again. Can we have a theme for him? You're like, what? No. If you want to put your character standing on a sand dune while two songs set behind him, give me like 4 minutes of the horn solo, then you can have a theme, And, they always reference Star Wars, like it's as easy as that, But obviously, George Lucas built all these, great big kind of setup things for John Williams to kind of do something amazing.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, that's
there we
an
are.
amazing answer. And Joby, oh, no, thank you so much for your time tonight and
No,
for
my absolute pleasure. Lovely
your
talking
time.
to you.
Absolutely. And congratulations with Sing. And
Thanks.
I can't wait for the world to see it and take in your amazing work. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks very much indeed.